greed, opportunity, money, trust, as well as technology come together, we have white-collar crimes, or what is also known as crimes of corruption, occurring. In the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, we have 3 principal sections or units that deal with investigating white-collar crimes. These include Investigation Bureau, which was established to deal with the major government corruption matters. We also have the Financial Investigation Branch, as well as the Professional Standards Unit, which deal with those crimes that police officers commit. These units are in fact assisted by the Cybercrime Unit, as well as the Forensic Science Center. Within recent times, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, given the challenges we have in terms of resources, we are very, very fortunate to get assistance from some of the external agencies. Certainly we have to pay for those resources, such as Price Waterhouse, as well as Deloitte. Some of the major white-collar crimes include card fraud, and certainly, as you all are aware, it would include both debit card fraud as well as credit card fraud, and we have the counterfeiting of those cards sometimes, as well as we have fraud even with the genuine cards. We have corruption, fraudulent checks, falsification of accounts. We do have forgeries, which generally deal with identity-type documents, forged driving permits, election and boundaries documents, as well as probably sometimes passports. We have deeds and wills, as well as we also have counterfeit currency. We have fraudulent wire transfers, which time and time occur occasionally at financial institutions such as banks. We do have larceny servant and embezzlement. We do have larceny trick. We have incidents of money laundering, as well as obtaining money by false pretenses. We also have aspects of bounce checks, which are also known as dishonor checks. The principal legislation which governs these offenses include the Prevention of Corruption Act, the Proceeds of Crime Act, the Computer Misuse Act, the Larceny Act, the Forgery Act. We have the Criminal Offences Act, the Electronic Transfer of Funds Act, as well as we have the Mutual Assistance and Criminal Act. Generally, some of these acts, they are in fact, the Larceny Act is as old as 1913, and certainly we need updating, as in the English Act where they would have the Theft Act. Sometimes we say that while we operate in a digital world, we continue to have laws that still operate in terms of the analog times. So we do have some challenges. In terms of reports of government fraud, and these are reports of government fraud which are actually made at the Fraud Squad office. It doesn't have all those reports of fraud that are in fact made at the Anti-Corruption Bureau. You would have seen a slight increase in the numbers from 2014 to 2016, and year to date in 2017, we would have had 68 such reports. In terms of the values, all of us would be aware that in terms of the reports, generally, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service get a lot of reports of major government fraud every 5 years. As soon as the government changes, we do get quite a considerable number of reports. These reports do challenge us to the extent that they are very complex. These frauds, these reports, or the allegations, they are very, very sophisticated. We work very closely with the Director of Public Prosecutions, all in an effort to determine whether we have the evidence to prosecute persons. But one would well imagine that the timing when these reports are made, after 5 years, there's real difficulty in obtaining some of the relevant documentation, as well as even some of the witnesses. And quite apart from that, whether persons are willing to cooperate to assist in these investigations. So these values that we have here are basically in relation to the smaller type of government frauds, because the major ones, each of them, the figures actually are in the multi-million-dollar category. At present, we are, in fact, investigating quite a number of them, and investigations are ongoing. In terms of the general frauds, we would have, between 2015 to 2017, we do have an increase, a trend that is trending upwards. However, these reports are mainly to deal with issues around things like card fraud. We do have reports, companies making reports with respect to embezzlement, fraudulent conversion, forgeries, as well as even large-scale theft, which we say flat larceny. We do have some, in some instances, because of the laws, we still have to use the Larceny Act, and in issues such as, because we don't have laws in respect of things like wire transfers, we still have to use the Larceny Act to, in fact, proceed with those matters. The figures for general fraud, while we see a substantial figure in 2015, in 2016, the numbers decreased significantly, mainly because there were some major reports that were made in 2015. In 2017, today the figure to date stands at about $75 million, and we continue, based on our limited resources, we continue to make every effort to investigate these matters. In terms of card fraud, we have also seen an upward trend, and we have also seen an influx of foreigners who are in fact responsible for committing some of these card fraud. So within recent times, we would have seen persons from Bulgaria, we would have seen sometimes persons from other European countries. And when we look at the types of fraud with respect to the card fraud, and in particular the debit card, the credit card fraud, these frauds are in relation to foreign credit cards, and there is in fact a serious challenge when we try to investigate these matters, and in particular, we have to use the services of the Attorney General, in particular through the Central Authority, to get assistance to investigate these matters. However, we have had some success, and within recent times, you would have seen persons pleading guilty with respect to some of these matters, and sometimes we do have a challenge where we need to have interpreters to assist us to bring these matters before the court. With respect to the Proceeds of Crime Act under our FIB unit, which is the Financial Investigation Branch, we have a number, based on the way how the law has changed, we have been able to, in fact, make quite a number of prosecutions with respect to money laundering. And during the period 2012 to 2017, we would have charged about 16 persons for about 89 offenses, and we would have, in fact, seized various sums of money in different currency denominations. And these include TT, 14 million, US, about 40,000 Canadian, as well as Barbadian dollars. In terms of cash forfeited by the state, during that same period, from 2011 to 2016, we would have forfeited cash from 9 persons, and the total value of the cash forfeited would have amounted to TT $338,338.40. We would have, in fact, forfeited US over $2 million. And there are quite a substantial number of foreign currency that turn up, especially around persons who are, in fact, either involved in card fraud as well as trafficking in illegal drugs. We also were able to forfeit about 28,000 EC currency. Generally, we have to go before the judge in the High Court to get these various orders, and at the end, we start with confiscating, and then we make applications to have them forfeited. And so far we have been successful in forfeiting cash in respect of 9 persons. There are a considerable number of investigations still pending. In terms of between 2015 to 17, there have been 39 seizures, and we have seized just over 2 million TT dollars, as well as US $72,000. In terms of challenges that the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service face when investigating white-collar crimes, we see the whole aspect of timeliness in terms of when these reports are in fact made. Even within the private sector, normally these frauds are committed, but due to lack of proper internal controls and probably auditing checks, these reports are probably made within a year or sometime 2 years after these offenses have in fact been committed. So we do get a challenge in terms of documentation as well as gathering. When I mean documentation, getting some of the original documents, as well as even being able to interview some of the witnesses, because sometimes some of the employees would have long moved on. In terms of some of the solvability factors, too, sometimes there are not a high number of solvability factors, and where there are low solvability factors, we do experience some difficulty in prosecuting these matters. Cooperation of witnesses are in fact needed, and in terms of Trinidad and Tobago environment, and in particular, where we do have a long drawn-out process in terms of the court, sometimes we do not get willing cooperation of witnesses. There are a lot of these white-collar crimes. What we have is the victims prefer to settle these matters out of court. So sometimes, even after we commence investigations, you find, I don't want to say that we waste our time and our effort, but sometimes the victims do not want to take the matter to the court. The very length of the judicial process, most of the matters reported are in fact indictable matters, in particular those major matters, they are indictable. So then we have the preliminary inquiry, and then we have the whole aspect of committal proceedings, which sometimes take between 5 to 7 years. We even have as long as 12 years. In terms of the legislation, well, you would have heard the Attorney General this morning speaking about updating some of those pieces of legislation, and certainly that would help us, but we do have some challenges in terms of outdated legislations. In terms of officers to go to these units, we do vet these officers who have to work at the fraud squad or the anti-corruption bureau as well as the FIB. Given the challenge of violent crimes within Trinidad and Tobago, we have to put a lot of resources into that. As a result, even some of the officers who work within these units sometimes are called to assist us in these other units. So we do have some constraints. There are, in fact, no provisions in law, as you heard earlier, with respect to provision for whistleblowers. So in terms of persons coming forward on a timely basis to probably, even with respect to government fraud or frauds in the private sector, we do have a challenge with that. Sometimes, even at the private sector as well as in the public sector, there's a lack of policy and procedures, written policies and procedures in particular, as well as internal controls. And this creates difficulties with respect to getting the admissible evidence, because it is important that in taking these matters before the court, that we have to ensure that we produce evidence which is beyond reasonable doubt, and in so doing, we must have a compelling case. So sometimes, by and large, there's, in particular, when we have foreigners detained and so on, we do get some issues in trying to access the services of interpreters. Some time ago, we did have to bring an interpreter out of St. Lucia in relation to when we had to prosecute the Bulgarians. In terms of successes, well, successes have been very, very moderate. And in fact, we have been able to increase our success rate by networking, both with our government institutions as well as our non-government institutions, as well as our international partners. We do work closely with, when we have these foreign matters and foreign credit cards with Interpol. So we do get some help there. We continue to train our officers in various skills, advanced investigation techniques, document examination, cybercrime, as well as computer training. We also attend regional workshops. We, in fact, our units, the fraud squad as well as the anti-corruption unit, we go out and meet with our NGOs as, in terms of the business sector. We go out also and meet not only the business sector, but we conduct seminar and awareness training with all the other NGOs. We go to Tobago. We work closely with the banking sector as well as the insurance industry. In terms of cooperation, well, obviously, for us to prosecute these matters, we depend on public cooperation. We continue to train our officers in forensics as well as cybercrime capabilities. And we want to thank both the United States government as well as our British and Canadian partners for their assistance. With respect to, we have been able to pursue matters with respect to money laundering due to the updating of the Proceeds of Crime Act, and we continue to ensure that once we have matters where persons would have illegally obtained proceeds of crime, we in fact always add to the prosecution offenses of money laundering. We have also employed analysts within our organization, both from the aspect of crime analysts as well as intelligence analysts. So we have the skills, we have some skills which help us, in fact, in successfully navigating and prosecuting and bringing forward the evidence to solve these matters. In terms of one of the ways by which we advocate to curtail the scourge of white-collar crime, that we actually work with our business community, and in terms of these outreach programs, and advocate prevention in terms of white-collar crime. And we know that, by and large, within the business community, the main concern is the quality of the employee. So certainly, the employee there needs to be proper vetting of employees, all in an effort to ensure that we have honest employees. We need to create a positive working environment. There is need also at the business level to ensure that there is in fact some employees, when they are operating in environments where crimes are in fact occurring, they are very traumatized, and they need to be assisted. So organizations that in fact have employee assistance program, these are very helpful in terms of minimizing the opportunity to commit these types of crimes. Certainly, they need to have strong internal controls, all in an effort to ensure that there is proper division of labor as well as segregation of responsibilities. We do not want to have one employee managing the entire process, or one set of employees, for instance, collecting cash, and then we have the same employee reconciling the return checks, collecting the return checks as well as reconciling them. Within the business community, one of the most difficult aspects that occur is how do we ensure that employees do not collude to ensure that these crimes do not occur. And by and large, continuously working or vetting or training these employees, especially creating this openness, would cause, if employees become suspicious, they would in fact communicate any irregularities that take place within the business. So monitoring of employees, very, very important. Even within the private enterprise, they could, in fact, private businesses, there could be some mechanisms that deals with whistleblowing to encourage persons to come forward and report these crimes. The whole aspect of when these crimes occur, we need to ensure that the persons who manage the businesses support the police in terms of prosecuting these offenses, all in an effort to ensure that those persons who commit these offenses would be punished. And there is also the need to have proactive auditing. With this, I want to, if there are any questions, I am prepared to, answer, but I've come to the end of my presentation.